Phil Hellmuth is arguably one of the most annoying poker players in the world. From threatening to burn venues down,
I think I'm gonna burn this fucking place down if I don't win this fucking tournament. Fucking burn this fucking place down.
to receiving constant criticism for his poker brat personality, it's no surprise that not everyone loves Phil. But what if I told you that Phil Hellmuth is a misunderstood superstar with achievements better than anyone else in the entire world and a kind heart for the people around him? It seems like all of his hate might be misguided. But how did this all start, and why is he so hated? Now, if you asked anyone around about Phil Hellmuth, most people would jump straight to his meltdowns or his bracelet counts. But let's rewind to his earlier days in Madison, Wisconsin. Phil was born on July 16, 1964 in Madison. And as expected, he attended Madison West High School. But he wasn't the type of kid who would walk into the cafeteria and everyone would be dying to sit with him. In interviews, he'd mentioned that he felt awkward, had trouble with grades and making friends, and even called himself the ugly duckling of the family. Quite sad, isn't it? But yeah, that really stuck with him. His dad, on the other hand, he was the dean of the University of Wisconsin, so there was a lot of pressure to do well and fit a certain mold. Phil later said he felt compared to other people and struggled with low self-esteem. He always felt like he needed to prove himself, to find something he could control and actually be good at. That's actually a big part of why he fell into poker games early, but we'll get to that in a minute. During his college years, Phil studied at the University of Wisconsin-Madison for a while, but the classroom never really felt like the right stage for him. So he started playing cards and realized he was actually very good at the sort of quick thinking the game demanded. Finally, after spending 3 years, he left school to try poker full-time. At that point, that choice looked rather risky, and I'm not gonna lie, it was. But hey, it worked out, and it turned out to be the first step that helped Phil choose a life where only his skills were demanded, not social approval. You'll see how that gamble paid off later. So basically, Phil's awkward school years pushed him towards something he could master, not make him lazy or uninterested, given his situation with things back then. But unfortunately for Phil, there was a horrible reality waiting for him behind the dream. After Phil left school and went to chase cards full-time, that's where his story really begins. When he first moved to Las Vegas in his early 20s, he thought the city would be his shortcut to success. But Vegas literally chews up dreamers. Can anyone relate? Please share your best Vegas stories in the comments. I'd love to hear them. Anyways, so in Las Vegas, Phil actually lost his bankroll more than once. He went broke a few times, had nights that felt hopeless, and learned the hard truth that talent isn't the same as instant cash. He had to rebuild, borrow even, and hustle his way back into the game. That period did a number on him emotionally. Imagine having to go from high hopes to utter desperation after making the decision to drop out. That's where self-doubt started to creep in. He felt like an outsider and had to watch other players run hot while all he could do was crash and burn. I mean, in some interviews, Phil did admit that he felt insecure about needing to find something he could control and be the best at. And the poker game gave him just that. Then, around age 22 or 23, something changed. Phil decided he was going to get locked in. He moved to Vegas full-time, stopped treating poker like a side hustle, and started treating it like a job. And when I said locked in, I meant that he started to study hands, learn about opponents, and build mental strength against the game. I don't know about that last part, but I guess he tried. Anyway, as for his bankroll, he took his time and slowly built it with his small wins. Over time, those small wins added up, and that steady grind is the same driving force that later produced his 1989 World Series of Poker main event run. The thing is, Phil didn't let the pressure and repeated failure break him. The fire you see at the table later, the anger at bad beats, the loud protests when he thinks someone disrespected the game, it all traces back to how he got himself to where he is. And if for any reason the game felt threatened, he would always react. And somehow that reaction turned into his brand. But we'll talk about that later. So, with all that studying, determination, and rebuilding came a breakthrough at the World Series of Poker. And as life may have it, in 1989, a younger, sharper Phil made a run no one expected, where he beat Johnny Chan heads up to win the main event.
$750,000 to the winner. And there it is. Hellmuth wins the championship. So Phil...
Not only was his bank account happier and fatter, but that was the turning point of his identity. Suddenly, the kid from Madison who thought he had to please people to matter became the youngest world champion. This was the seed of the poker brat personality. Alright, now we get to the noisy part. We're going to see how cruel the internet really is when stating their opinion, and how the pros react to Phil, who somehow managed to end up as a walking meme. Curious yet? Let's go on then. Like I've said before, most casual viewers describe Phil Hellmuth the same way. He's loud, dramatic, and quick to complain when the cards don't go his way. He yells, he criticizes other players, and even goes as far as calling them names. He also argues with the dealer, and yes, he has a talent for turning a bad hand into a drama-filled rant and stray bullets. And those outbursts are exactly why many fans call him annoying or exhausting. But why do players hate sitting with him? Let's break that down. Let's take things from a pro's point of view. Phil actually brings, what's the word? Instability. Poker is a game of focus and quick thinking, so when one player throws a tantrum, it tends to break the flow. Another thing is that most of his opponents say he's unpredictable, and unpredictability at a high-stakes table can feel like a slow poison. It distracts, it angers, and it changes decision-making. Some pros even intentionally bait him because his reactions are content gold, but sometimes baiting also blows up in their faces real fast. Want an example? Then let's talk about the classic Poker After Dark blow-up. Phil asked the table to be quiet while he thought, and the players actually kept quiet for a split second. But when Huck's seed snapped back, the players laughed.
Sean, would you please mind this time? Please be quiet.
Please be quiet so I can talk.
While Phil stormed off the set, it became one of those legendary TV moments that people still clip and laugh about up until today. So how did these moments shape his brand? There were a few incidents that became permanent internet memes for classic Hellmuth. The 2008 World Series of Poker meltdown, where he called an opponent an idiot from Northern Europe, was crazy.
And roaming.
5-7. Idiot from Northern Europe.
Idiot from Northern Europe, Phil.
It's certainly one of those clips that gets reposted every time someone wants a reaction gif. Then there are dozens of short, explosive clips, including the mic tosses and table storms that editors switch into best-of compilations. They just led to the fact that Phil became less of a person in the public eye and more of a set of reaction images. He's everywhere. Podcasts, sports shows, and social feeds. Media voices even turned his mood swings into a form of entertainment. Fans, on the other hand, they remixed clips into GIFs and short-form videos, and Reddit threads exploded with "not again" posts. The strange thing is that the mockery and the sharing both boost his persona. People laugh at him and then reshare the clip, which means the very thing people say they hate is the thing they keep giving attention to. But not all pros hate him. Some, like Daniel Negreanu, have publicly roasted him and also admitted he's entertaining and skilled. Others have said he's unbearable to play with. But this division matters because it shows the difference between professional respect and personal tolerance. What am I trying to say? Well, basically, players may respect his results, but still not want to share a table with him for long stretches. I mean, can you imagine yourself being at the table with millions on the line and someone starts actively ranting? Would you stay calm, or would the tilt infect you? For Phil, the public backlash did end with Twitter jokes. Meltdowns meant extra interviews, explanations, and sometimes damaged relationships. For his opponents, it can mean awkward table dynamics and real frustration. For TV producers, it's a mixed bag. Drama equals views, but too much drama somehow becomes a liability. And the industry often tolerates the chaos because, as ugly as it is, it brings the views that they need. Here's the honest question. Does Phil deserve nonstop mockery? He's brash, sure. He's sometimes toxic, sure. But he's also one of the most successful players ever, and his behavior actually stems from insecurity and pressure, things we already talked about earlier in this video. The thing is, people see the tantrums and stop there. They don't always look at why the tantrums happen, and that's where the misunderstood argument starts to stick. You know the story. Phil storming off, tossing a mic, calling someone names. But that's only what the media wants you to see. Behind those GIFs and memes lies a grown man and someone who spends a surprising amount of time and energy giving back. but we'll get to why that matters in a bit. It turns out that over the years, he's helped run a ton of charity poker events and fundraisers. On his own site, he says he's helped raise tens of millions for charity, a number that's been reported in multiple profiles of his charity work. That's huge. He's been a major support for big charity efforts. For example, he emceed the Big Deal for One Drop charity event in 2024, which also happens to be a major fundraising effort tied to big names and big goals like water and climate programs. Stuff like that moves real money to real causes. He's also regularly involved with the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and the World Poker Tour's Foundation's All In for Kids events. There, they've got charity nights that raise serious cash for kids' care and palliative programs. And it's not the situation where you'd say he attended once for the cameras. Phil actually shows up, helps organize, and lobbies other big names to join. And yes, we'll talk about whether charity cancels out the tantrums, but don't get it confused yet. It at least changes the picture. Here's a weird but important thought to hold on to. People who've actually spent time with Phil often say he's calm and kind off camera. Big names who've interviewed or played charity events with him have described him as surprisingly nice and approachable. That's far off from the nonstop screaming gif you see on repeat. Maria Konnikova and others even testified about his calm, positive side in interviews. Now, that disconnection between his on-camera rage versus his off-camera niceness is what fuels the misunderstood argument. Let me tell you, Phil hasn't run away from accountability. After some of his biggest meltdowns, he's gone on record saying he crossed the line and reflected on his behavior. That shows at least some self-awareness, a guy who knows when he blew up and will say so. But let's see the bigger picture here. When you only watch clips, you see a performer, aka the poker brat. But when you look at the full person, you see a father, a fundraiser, someone who leans on poker to help causes he believes in. The tantrums are real, and they can get out of hand too, but so is life, and people are complicated. Think of it like this. You wouldn't judge a movie star only by their most scandalous tabloid moment, right? So why judge a person the same way? The off-camera Phil is the reason charities want him involved. Why? Because he brings the attention, the connections, and let's not forget, the donations. That's how to leave your name in history. But at the same time, let's not pretend that charity wipes everything clean. Meltdowns can hurt people, and sometimes they cause Phil some slight issues. But joining everyone else in mockery without seeing the whole picture also sounds kind of shallow. Phil's charitable work and the good moments people report complicate the story. They don't erase the bad, but they also make the all hate no context view look incomplete. So maybe he's the villain of poker, or maybe he's the only one honest enough to feel every win and every loss out loud. Either way, Phil Hellmuth keeps the game alive, and maybe that's what truly makes him misunderstood. So what do you guys think? Do you think Hellmuth is an annoying brat trying to cover it with good work outside of poker, or just a regular good guy having a hard time controlling his feelings?